It's time for the revenge of the D.C. federal judges against Donald Trump's administration. They're still smarting from the Jan 6 pardons, and they're the judges who, by and large, are going to be making the decisions against Donald Trump effectively for his executive orders that are unconstitutional and illegal. It's time for the revenge of the federal judges in the District of Columbia. I'm Michael Popok. I'm going to do a dive into the 32 cases that have already been filed against the Trump administration in just 2 weeks and 1 day. That, by my math, and I'm no math major, that's more than 2 lawsuits a day already in this administration. And rule of law is winning with 3 temporary restraining orders. Of those 32 cases, 15 are in the District of Columbia. I'll tell you why that matters. You're on the MeidasTouch Network and Legal AF. Let's do a deep dive. I joked early on, starting in Jan 20, that we were going to see at least 3 to 4 times as many lawsuits filed against the Trump administration as in his first term. There were over 1,000 cases filed in his first term, and the attorneys general and public interest groups back then had an 80% winning percentage. Now, I said because of Donald Trump and his grand schemes that are insane, or as Chris Murphy, the senator, Democratic senator, put it, he's losing it, and therefore creating a pariah state out of the United States around the world, that we were going to see 3 to 4 times that amount. And if we do the math on that, that meant somewhere between 3 to 4 lawsuits a day, every day until the end of his administration. We're already getting there, right? That glass is already half full with 32 lawsuits. I'm going to go over broadly those lawsuits. I'm going to tell you about the revenge of the D.C. federal judges, because 15 out of 32 of those cases are before them. All those judges that either handled cases involving Donald Trump or the Jan 6 insurrectionists. Remember, more than 1,600 cases went through one courthouse. I mean, it was unprecedented. It was the largest investigation and prosecution operation of the FBI and the Department of Justice in our history. And what judges handled that? One courthouse, one place, District of Columbia. Every judge in the District of Columbia handled multiple dozens of Jan 6 cases. They did it from bench trials where they handled the trial themselves. They did it from presiding over jury trials. They did the sentencing, and they dealt with the aftermath of the pardons. None of them were happy about the pardons, right? There was no MAGA DC federal judge that was excited about the pardons. All of them objected to them and felt it was against the rule of law, sent a terrible message, and was an insult and disrespect to the jury process and to the judges. Yeah. And so now they're the same judges in these civil cases. Remember, these are civil, not criminal cases that are being brought against Donald Trump's executive orders. He only issued about 30 of them. He's already got 32 lawsuits. Multiple lawsuits being filed by public interest groups, Democracy Forward with Norm Eisen, the ACLU, the NAACP, 22 different states and their attorneys general, all bringing cases around the country, but primarily in the District of Columbia. I'll talk about the other places cases have been filed and their common denominator. The common denominator among all 32 is that they're in democratic and rule of law friendly jurisdictions. I never thought I'd have to call a federal court a rule of law friendly. Shouldn't they all be rule of law friendly? But they're not. And so strategically, tactically, the Democrats and other progressives that are bringing these lawsuits and winning, 3 temporary restraining orders already. We'll be getting temporary restraining orders by the day. Actually, 4 temporary restraining orders, because one came in late last night with Judge Lamperth in the District of Columbia about housing men who transition to transgender women being housed in prisons with men. That's now stopped by a temporary restraining order. So we have 4 restraining orders out of 32 cases with more to come. Some class action, some direct action. Some seeking temporary restraining orders and preliminary injunctions, some not seeking it, some seeking declarations or money damages. Depends on the type of case. Let's look at the 32 cases. The common denominator, rule of law, favorable judges in states along the Northeast and the Pacific Northwest, and staying away from red states, okay? And red state appellate courts. 32 lawsuits. Let's go. Birthright citizenship. That was the first executive order that was challenged. Many of these lawsuits were filed on January 20th, the day of the inauguration, and the first day in office for Donald Trump, first day on the job, and some just days later, all the way up and through, as I said, yesterday and today. We have 7 different cases filed on birthright citizenship. Listen to the states: New Hampshire, 2 in Massachusetts, Maryland, Washington, and Washington State, Northern California, and D.C. Okay? And, for instance, in D.C., the federal judge is Emmett Sullivan, senior status judge, very not in favor of Donald Trump. We already have a temporary restraining order issued by Judge Coffenor in Seattle, Washington, stopping birthright citizenship while New Hampshire looks at the same issue. But there are 7 cases. The reason, it's a portfolio method. First of all, these are different groups representing different interests. Some are attorneys general. Some, in the case of birthright citizenship, are actual people who are here with babies who were born on U.S. soil that are now being denied U.S. citizenship. You flood the zone. You file 7 cases. You hope to get a number of really good cases, and whoever gives you the best decision, you rally behind that judge. It is forum shopping, and I don't care. This is the way it works. So right now, I think we're going to go 7-0 in those cases. If you only filed 1 case and you got a crappy judge or crappy ruling, you're stuck with it. File 7 cases, you got 7 different decisions. Sanctuary cities and Donald Trump's efforts to go after sanctuary cities. This is under immigration. In immigration alone, about sanctuary cities, about chasing undocumented through churches and schools in raids, whether that's legal or not, going after the closing of the website to schedule appointments on the southern border. There are 6 different cases against various aspects of Donald Trump's immigration policy by executive order. We've got 4 of them in the District of Columbia. Right? Back to my majority in District of Columbia. 1 in the Northern District of Illinois, 1 in Maryland. Now let's go on to issues related to Donald Trump trying to fire civil servants under Schedule F or otherwise. There are 3 of those cases. 2 are in the District of Columbia, 1 is in Maryland. Attacks on Elon Musk and his Department of Government Efficiency. Either him trying to get into the Bureau of Financial Services, which handles $5 trillion worth of payments, including Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, disability, food stamps, student loans, everything that the federal government pays to its citizens who have earned it. I used the term last night in Popok Live, which we've always referred to it in shorthand as entitlements. Entitlements doesn't mean like you feel like you're entitled, like a snowflake Gen Z thing. It means you're entitled to it. You've earned it. That's why that term came up. And whatever you call it, it's those benefits that are paid out by Congress allocation that Elon Musk has thrown his hands in, gotten control of the software, turned over to him by the Treasury Secretary, Steve Bissett, all in violation of law, all in violation of the Constitution, the Appropriations Act, Separation of Powers Act, the Administrative Procedures Act, the First Amendment, you name it. Yeah. So we've got DOGE Elon Musk suits. He's hooked up to the Office of Personnel Management. He's sending out emails about deleting this agency like USAID, deleting these people, deleting this DEI or this woke agency, all illegally hooking up to a server he shouldn't be hooked up to.
I haven't been this excited by a new sponsor in a long time. Honeylove Shapewear. It looks and feels amazing and makes me feel and look my best. It gives me a little extra help in the areas I need it, and it's so comfortable. I can literally wear it every day. I've tried other shapewear products, and none of them are as comfortable and at the same time as effective as Honeylove. So get support where you need it and not where you don't. It's lightweight, breathable, and looks like lingerie. So With wedding season here, I actually wore my new Honey Love to a wedding and it was beyond perfect. I don't have to be afraid of tight dresses or any those little lumps and bumps. You know what I'm talking about showing. Plus it lifts you all in all the places, if you know what I mean. So with Honey Love, you can feel your best even when you're wearing less. They use targeted compression to enhance your curves instead of squeezing them. You'll feel hugged and not suffocated, whether you're a bride, a guest, or looking for an extra confidence in everyday life. Honey Love is your go-to for all things shapewear. Plus, it's the only shapewear that won't ever roll down no matter how much time you spend on the dance floor. Honey Love shapewear features lingerie-inspired design, and there are details that you'll want to show off, and it's made with breathable fabric that keeps you nice and cool. So for a limited time only, you can get Honey Love on sale. Get 20% off your entire order with our exclusive link, honeylove.com/legalaf. Support our show. Check them out at Honey Love. It's honeylove.com/legalaf. Treat yourself to the best bras and shapewear on the market and save 20% off at honeylove.com/legalaf. Thank you so much for supporting our show, Honey Love.
So there are 5 different lawsuits against Elon Musk and Donald Trump as a result, all in the District of Columbia, about the attempted impoundment of federal funds, the freezing of funds to states for state-run programs to help the impoverished, the underprivileged, and the rest, and not-for-profit grants that go to not-for-profit organizations that do the lion's share of helping the poor and the working poor in this country, cutting off that funding. That resulted in a case in Rhode Island and a case in the District of Columbia and 2 TROs. Then on transgender issues, we've got 3 cases in the District of Columbia and 1 in Maryland. In the District of Columbia case, Royce Lamperth, a Republican-appointed judge in District of Columbia, just last night issued a temporary restraining order to stop Donald Trump from having his Bureau of Prisons take transgender women and put them in male prisons. How well do you think that's going to go before somebody is murdered, raped, both, or worse in a male prison, as opposed to housing them with their gender identity, which is, and of course, cutting off their gender-affirming care. So things related to transgender and gender-affirming care, cutting off teenagers who are in midst of transition from medical care, cutting and doing this, just basically wanting to kill an entire population of transgender prisoners as completely, not only arbitrary and capricious under the Administrative Procedures Act, but inhumane, right? As inhumane as that is, as a constitutional violation against due process, against civil liberties and civil rights. 3 cases in the District of Columbia, 1 case in Maryland. So when you total it all up, 15 cases in D.C. Now let's talk about that. Firstly, the common denominator, as I said, these are all fair-minded, moderate to democratic strongholds. That's why these cases are being filed there. And they report into appellate courts that we have confidence in. The Ninth Circuit, which although got a little Trumpy during his first term, is now, basically on balance, still more Democrat than Republican. So you got the Ninth Circuit covering Washington, Oregon, and California. You've got the First Circuit, which covers like upper New England, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, that type of thing. And then you got the first drop down to New York. You've got the Second Circuit, which covers that area. The Third Circuit, which covers New Jersey and Connecticut, that type of thing. And Maryland. Then you've got the District of Columbia, and it has its own appellate court. And that's where we're living. We're living in the 9th, the 1st, the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, the DCs, right? We're staying away from the 5th Circuit out of Louisiana and Texas, the 11th Circuit out of Georgia and Florida. Yeah, we're staying away from the red state strongholds, because not only are those appellate courts favorable to us, but the Supreme Court justices responsible for those appellate courts are also the democratically appointed ones. So that's the first step in the train on appeal. And most of these cases are going to be attempted to go to the United States Supreme Court. They won't all be successful. Supreme Court takes 60. All right, let's make it 70 this term. Cases, that's it. out of thousands and thousands that are filed, as you can see. Now, here's the revenge element of the hot take. Every one of these cases will touch on the District of Columbia in one way or the other, through multiple filings or because exclusively in the District of Columbia. Those are the same judges that watched with horror Jan 6th happen in real time, as in Washington, the immediate arraignment of the Jan 6th insurrectionists, the investigation by the special counsel, what happened to Tanya Chutkan, the judge presiding over the DC election interference case, and they all had shock and horror over what they watched that the Department of Justice presented in terms of the violence and the carnage on Jan 6th. That they presided over, that they heard in evidence as the trier of fact in a bench trial or presided over in a jury trial and handled the sentencing of it. And were in horror and in shock when the pardons happened and said it was wrong out loud and are still resisting. They're still resisting. There are still judges that are handling issues related to Jan 6th insurrectionists. And what are they doing about it? They're saying things like, well, you're still on probation, or I'm dismissing the indictment, but only without prejudice. Maybe another Department of Justice will indict you again. And that's how they're doing their profile and courage. So I'm telling you now, watch for the DC federal courts that have an axe to grind against Donald Trump, and they're going to take it out on him now with his executive orders. And if 20 or 25 or so executive orders resulted in 32 cases, you can do the math. Now, Donald Trump's been sort of slowing down on his executive orders, but there's going to be more to come. And it's these courts, the ones I've already outlined for you, and the judges I've already outlined for you. Ali Khan in D.C., Coffenor in Seattle, McConnell in Rhode Island. And wait till Judge Chutkan in D.C. gets assigned her case, Emmett Sullivan in the District of Columbia, Amy Berman Jackson in the District of Columbia, Amit Mehta. These are the people that preside. Amit Mehta presided over the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. Proud Boys leader got 22 years before he was pardoned by Donald Trump. Oath Keeper, 18 years before he was pardoned by Donald Trump. You don't think Amit Mehta is ready to take on executive orders? And this is our dream. I mean, it's a nightmare, but the silver lining of the nightmare is that Donald Trump can only rule by executive order. And that is where we get him, because these executive orders violate the Constitution. They violate the 14th Amendment. They violate due process. They violate the First Amendment. They violate the Administrative Procedures Act, or all five of those things at the same time. And the Supreme Court, as much as they bent over backwards to help a criminal president on the criminal side, hate executive orders. It's the least enforced item that a president can do, because they look to Congress for law, right? About appropriations, about funding, about immigration, big major issues. They look to Congress. They don't like presidents issuing executive orders and acting like they're legislators. So we will see. Not all of these cases I've just described are going to get up to the Supreme Court. Some of them, the final ruling is going to be at the appellate level just before the Supreme Court. And that's what we're banking on also. Because the Supreme Court is not going to take, the 4,000 cases ultimately they're going to be filed against the Trump administration by all these groups. Maybe over the course of 4 years, maybe they'll take 200 cases. Maybe. The rest, the last word is going to be these appellate courts. The Ninth Circuit, the First Circuit, the Second Circuit, the Third Circuit, the DC Court of Appeals. And we're here for it. Join Legal AF, the YouTube channel right now. Right now. If we're doing 2 to 3 cases a day, you got to go there for the unpacking, for the unveiling, for the analysis and the commentary. Legal AF MTN. Free subscribe over there and watch my work here on the MeidasTouch Network. Popok Live Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time right here on this YouTube channel. New podcast Wednesdays and Saturdays. It's Legal AF, the podcast channel, or the YouTube channel for the podcast and audio podcast platforms of your choice. And then all the work we're doing over 8, 9, 10 times a day on Legal AF. So until my next reporting, this is Michael Popok. In collaboration with the MeidasTouch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.